Okay. Good evening, everyone. Give me just a moment to get everything set up, make sure everything's working. Okay, I see myself. All right, we are looking good, ready to go. Okay, if anybody's here in the chat, drop me a message. Let me know you're here. I'd love to talk to everybody. So, for anybody who is not familiar with what we're doing tonight, we are setting up CI/CD, which is continuous integration and continuous deployment for the GitHub Game Off 2024 Game Jam. This is going to do is build our project automatically every time we push up to certain branches on GitHub. It will build that project and it will automatically deploy it over to my itch.io page. So I'm going to show you how that entire thing is handled. So to start, we're going to go into Unity and set up our empty project. So new project, we're just going to make this one a 2D, and I'm just going to stick with the editor version that I've currently got. I don't really need to update. And we're going to name this Game Off 2024. It's going to take a couple minutes, so everybody bear with me, please. In the meantime, anybody playing any really cool games, I'm always on the lookout for new stuff to play myself, so you got a new favorite you're playing right now? Let me know in the chat. Right now, I'm getting back into a couple different things. One, I'm playing through Portal. It's my very first playthrough Portal. Surprisingly, I've never played it before. Don't hate me in the chat. And then the other one, I've started getting back into playing TFT, Teamfight Tactics. So if we got any players, let me know that you play in the comments. I always forget how long this build process takes. Okay, there we go. Almost there. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Perfect. There we go. Okay, so we have our empty Unity project. Next thing we need to do is set this up on GitHub. I already have my GitHub page open, ready to go. So easiest thing to do is just click the plus icon. We're going to create a new repository. Call this one Game Off 2024. I'm going to go ahead and keep it public. That way anybody can see my code. I don't really have a problem with it. Anybody that wants to use any of my things, more than welcome to. I am going to add a README file. I always like to have documentation so people can know what they need to do, where they can see it. Git ignore. I am going to add a git ignore for Unity. You don't have to. I do a couple things that I don't like to include in the repo just for size. And we're going to create that repo. Usually doesn't take too long. There we go. We're good. And we're going to get the URL for that repo. Copy it over to our clipboard. And I'm going to bring open our command prompt. And I'm going to go to where this Unity project is located. And we're going to go ahead and set up that repo, connect it to the one we just created on GitHub. So CD for change directory. We are going to go to... always forget where it's located. I just switched over to Windows 11, so I'm still getting things squared away. So CD, OneDrive, desktop. And we're going to Game Off. That's it. Okay. Once we're in our directory, we're going to turn that into a Git repository. So git init will initialize it. That has been done. Now we're going to add or connect it to that remote repository on GitHub. So git remote add origin. And there we go. That's connected. I'm going to go ahead and pull the two files that we have from GitHub down. Let's see. We have the gitignore and the README file. So I'm going to go ahead and do a git pull to pull those down just to make sure the connection is working properly. Git pull origin. And I believe I have it set up as main. Yes, main. Okay, you can see that those have pulled down. That means the connection that we have between our local Unity project and the GitHub repository, that connection has been made. And just to verify that, I always like to go ahead and switch our branch over to a development branch, make sure that we're not missing anything, and then go ahead and push that empty Unity project. So let's start by switching over that branch. Hey, I see a couple people have joined the stream. Good to see you guys. So I'm going to do git checkout B, and what that's going to do is both create a new branch and move over to it at the same time. So there's our development branch. If we do git status, we should now see, yes, we are on that development branch, and there's the files that have not yet been committed. So I'm going to go ahead and commit that empty Unity project in there. So git add everything. There we go. Git commit -m is how you create like a git message for that commit. And then I always like to say specifically what you're doing. In this case, we're just adding an empty Unity project. And I'm going to go ahead and push that. Git push origin development. Okay, so that has taken our local project, that empty Unity project, and it has pushed it up to the Git repo. And you can see right there, our development branch was updated 2 seconds ago. I'm going to click over into that just to make sure. Yes, you can see that has been added. So we've got the connection between our local environment and our GitHub repository. The next thing we wanted to do is create the connection between the GitHub repository and our itch.io page. And actually, I take that back. We're going to do this in a slightly different order. Give me just a moment, please. Been a little while since I've done this, so I'm trying to think of the best way to do this on stream. Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and do the itch.io one. So for this, there's going to be 4 things that we need, and we'll kind of come back to this in a little bit, and I'll walk you through the documentation. So we're going to go into the settings for our repository, and we need to set up some variables, and these are going to be action variables. These are going to be used by the automation project. You don't actually want to put your API key, your API key, in your repository anywhere and expose that code. You don't want to be exposing your Unity license key, so you can put those in here to make sure that that doesn't happen. And these are going to be the secrets. I always forget which one this is. Hold on just a minute. We are, hey, look at that good looking guy. Let's go here. Okay, so these are repository secrets, and these are the 4 names. We're going to have Unity email, Unity license, my Unity password, and my itch API key. What you got? Nice. You said bases loaded, no outs? Bases loaded, no. Nice. We got anybody watching the series? My wife just came in and let me know bases are loaded, no outs. Dodgers are up to bat, so apparently 5-0 Yankees. So we'll see what happens. Anywho, so those are the 4 things that we're going to need, and we want to have them here to make sure that they are kept out of our Git repository itself. So I'm going to go back over to that repository we just created. Settings, down in the secrets and variables. And again, these are repository secrets. I'm going to create one specifically called itch.io API key. You can name it whatever you want. We'll kind of come back to this in a minute. And then you're going to want to go to your personal itch.io page. Here is, I'm already logged in. I'm going to go to settings. Excuse me. And down at the very bottom, developer API keys. I'm already logged in through GitHub. This is going to be where your API key is. If you don't already have one, you can click generate a new API key. I'm going to drag this off to the side, hit view, copy this entire API key, and it is going to go in here. Obviously, I'm not going to do that on stream because it's my API key. I don't want you guys stealing it. So I'm going to drag this over just real quick. Okay, view, there's my API key. Okay, cool. We've got that added. Okay, so our API key has been created and connected to itch.io. What this is going to do is once the build is created, it will link it to the to my individual itch.io page via that API key. We'll come back to that here in a little bit. Next one we want is Unity email. Take that off again. Okay. Next one is going to be Unity password. I definitely don't want you guys seeing that one. Okay. And the final one is going to be your Unity license key. And this one is a little bit more complicated to get. The way you do this, you have to go into... Okay, I'll take it. Do what? All right. So Dodgers have scored one. We've got 2 outs, but bases are still loaded. So we'll see what happens. Okay. Unity license key. So in your Unity project folder, your Unity installation, you're going to have something called a .alf file, which is going to be how you activate the license file. That's what that ALF stands for. You're going to take that ALF file, provide it to Unity, and they will give you a ULF, a Unity license file. I won't really go through all that here. I have a video that walks you through how to do that. You can also search for it. This is the process in their documentation where it actually shows you how to generate that ULF file from the ALF. It's a little complicated the first time, but once you get it, you can just save it to your desktop or somewhere. I have it in specifically in a CI/CD template folder, and I just keep it right there. That way I can copy and paste it from here on out. So that's exactly what I'm going to do in this case. I'm going to... Yeah, you guys don't get my license key. All right, so same thing here. I'm going to move this over just real quick. Paste my license key in there. All right, so those are the 4 repository secrets that we need. Excuse me. So the last piece we currently need is our actual itch.io page, so that we'll know where we're going to push this game to. So I'm going to go into our dashboard. We're going to go down, ignore the projects we've currently got. We're going to create one specifically for Game Off 2024. This is a game. It is an HTML game. It is going to be in development. And I always set it to a particular size, and I can't remember what that is at the moment. Not really relevant just yet. We will keep this as a draft with comments. That should work for now. Okay, since we didn't actually upload anything, this is going to show empty for right now. That's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this URL and we'll add it into our CD. Nice. You said Freddie Freeman got a 2-run or a double. Yeah. Nice. Dodgers are up. Well, not up. 5-3. Yankees are still leading. We've got 2 outs, 2 on. Sorry, baseball fan. I was a catcher for 8 years. Do we have anybody that played any sports? Okay, lost my train of thought. So what we're going to do is take that URL and we're going to input it into our template here in a minute. That way it knows where to push. Let's go back over to our Unity project. And what we're going to do, here, let me bring this back up again. Okay, so I have this template that I have set up, and if anybody would like this template, I can certainly give it to you guys. Let's open it in. We'll open it in Notepad++. That way you can hopefully see it a little better. There we go. So this is the template that we have set up. What it's going to do, if we go through this, anytime that we push to either the main branch or the development branch, it is going to run this script. So if we're working on a different branch, let's say feature/player movement, as long as we are working on feature/player movement, it's not going to build this. We can make commits to it all we want. Nothing's going to happen. The moment we do a pull request or merge that code from feature/player movement over into development or over into main, that's when it's going to start doing this build process in the background. So I won't really go through a lot of this. This template is available over on, I believe it's Game CI. Yes, game.ci, which is Game Continuous Integration. You can find all of the code and how to implement this over here. I also have a walkthrough. I can provide the template, whatever you need. You say the word, and I will get it over to you. But that's where this template came from with a few modifications of my own. But essentially what it's doing is it's going to check out their code. It's going to borrow the code from your Git repository, do the build process, return it to you. And I don't remember what branch it is coming from. Okay, it is building to, in my case, I have it set up to build to a separate branch called itch-io. That way I just know everything that's on that branch is where the build comes from. Makes sense. Down at the very bottom, it's at 5. Thank God. Nice. We are tied at 5, runner at second with 2 outs. Okay, so this is where some of the other stuff comes into play. Once the build process has been done, this is the deploy. And you can see it is going to take it from that itch.io branch and move it into a specific folder on GitHub called build/webgl. Then it's going to start pushing it from GitHub over to itch.io. This is where the API key comes into play. In this case, we are using an HTML, or I'm sorry, not HTML, HTML as our build type. In this case, we are not doing Project Divinity. This is where the URL from your specific itch.io game page is going to go. So let's go back over to our itch page. This is my specific game page. So that's what I'm going to copy. And that's what's going to go into this template file. And you will need to update your itch username here. that's mine, so I've already got it saved into the template. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to copy that template. We're going to put it into our Game Off 2024 repository. Now, I can't just go in the root. GitHub has a little bit of a process that you have to do in order to get it in there. It needs to be in a .github folder. And since this is going to be a GitHub action, it's going to go into a separate second directory called workflows. And we'll go ahead and paste that template there. I'm going to open it back up just to make sure that we did save those. Yes, I got the URL and the username in there, so we are good to go on that. If I bring back up my my command line and go ahead and run git status, I should see that that is the only change, is adding that that .github folder. So we're going to go ahead and add that. Git add everything. Git commit. Add a CI/CD. And go ahead and take it from our local machine and push it up to GitHub. Cool. Now that should be on GitHub. We go back over there and head back over to the code base. Development had a push 10 seconds ago, so it looks like that push has worked. And yes, the CI/CD folder has been added. Now, you can see there's now this little orange dot. The orange is showing that that process is currently pending. You can click on it and it will take you over, or you can go up to Actions here at the top. That's where it will actually show you this process. So I haven't done anything. I've never created the build process within Unity. Haven't been in Unity in a while, but it is currently building in the background right now. I can click into this, and you can see there's the two separate processes that were in the template file. You build the project itself using the game CI process, and then the deploy over to itch.io. And you can click down into those even further to see where it's at. Altogether, this usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm not really going to sit here and do the whole thing. This probably is going to fail this time because there are a few things within Unity we haven't set up. Usually I would do that before actually pushing up the CI/CD file, the template file, and letting it do this. But I wanted to show you what that process actually is like and where this information is coming from. I'm going to go back into the template file just real quick because there was one thing I forgot to mention. And that is where the repository secrets that we placed a moment ago, the Unity license key, the Unity email, the Unity password, and the itch.io API key, where those were being used, and that is in this file. So as we go through this, it's checking everything out, and then once it does the build process, it needs to know your Unity info so it can make sure that it uses your license. So that's where these are. It's pulling from your repository secrets using Unity license, repository secret, Unity email, so on and so forth. And then down at the bottom, once it deploys over to itch.io, that's where it's pulling it. So if you name yours differently, you will need to update this particular line so that it has that same name. Okay. All right. While this is going, we're going to go ahead and go back into Unity and start updating those few remaining pieces that are a little bit different. Excuse me. Throat's getting a little scratchy. Okay. So the two pieces that we need right now is we need to adjust our build type. Our build type is currently set to whatever the default is, which I believe is desktop, Windows, since I'm on a Windows machine, or Mac if you're on it. So Yes, mine's currently defaulted to Windows, Mac, and Linux. I'm going to go ahead and set that to WebGL. Hit switch platform. Okay, so that's all I need to do to make a WebGL build. If I were to actually want to do this manually, I could just hit build and run, and I would have a WebGL build ready to go. Since we're automating that process, I'm not going to do that. The other piece that we need is to go ahead and start setting up our project settings. There's two key pieces that I have learned over doing this as many times as I have. In your player settings, you're going to want to go to the very bottom in publishing settings. There's two pieces you need to adjust here. The compression format is set to Brotli by default. You want to adjust that over to gzip. And the other is you want to enable decompression fallback. I haven't figured out quite why the decompression fallback is there, but that is a key component whenever it does the build process and it deploys to itch automatically. This is going to make sure you don't get that weird error message on the screen. So we'll keep it like that for right now. And the other piece that I want to do, cool little tip for anybody that needs it. Right now in Unity, if you were to just hit play, you know how it always takes like 10 or so seconds for the game to actually build each time? You can get rid of that. You can go to editor and this line right here, enable play mode options. You can click that, leave reload domain and reload scene blank. Now, anytime you hit play, it should almost immediately go in it. And you can see it's never doing that. The only time it'll really need to do that is whenever you have a new script. It will need to recompile to include that script, but past that, yeah, it'll reload automatically. Really cool trick. Anyway, so we've got those set up. I'm gonna go back over to GitHub, just to make sure that build process is okay. It is still going. Back up. Okay, so it's been going about 5 minutes. This usually takes about 15 minutes the first couple times, and then about 10 every time after that. A little bit longer if you have a really, really big game. So we might have to wait a minute on this. While that's going, I'm going to go ahead and create a second commit and at least have it ready to go. So check the status real quick. So it's showing that I'm on the development branch, but I haven't actually done anything. And of course we updated our Unity settings. Anytime it's in the configuration settings, it is not going to show those changes until you make a change to the project. All I'm going to do is just go in here and change the background color to, ew, that's a kind of hideous green. We'll go with that. And once I save that scene, come back in here and do status again. There we go. Now we can see that the project file itself has been changed. This sample scene Unity. We have the scene template settings is the new file that had to be created because of what we adjusted. And of course, the editor and project settings are there as well. So we're going to git add, create a new commit, update initial project settings for CI/CD. And now we're just going to have to kind of play the waiting game. We could go ahead and push this up to GitHub just to get this build process going. It's not usually a good idea to have two of them going at the same time. You can certainly do it. The reason I don't recommend doing that is, let's say you do two builds simultaneously. What if your second one ends up building before your first? That means your most recent one will deploy over to itch. And then once the original one finishes the build process, it is going to override what was previously pushed to itch. So I always recommend waiting until that process is finished before doing a second push. You don't have to. It's entirely up to you and your team. But that's my recommendation. So sorry to do it on this one, but we're going to have to kind of wait a little bit. Excuse me. While this is going, is anybody working on any kind of cool projects? Any upcoming game jams or game dev projects you're working on that are really cool? I've got one I've been working on for a little while. It's a little top-down shooter. It's sort of originally inspired by Hades, but I'm not sure what direction I'm actually taking it just yet. So, if you got something cool you're working on, let me know in the comments. And we're about 10 minutes in. I think I'm going to grab a little bit more water real quick. So, if you need a drink or bathroom break, go ahead and take it. And we'll catch back up once this build's done. I'm right next to the kitchen, so it didn't actually take that long. Ugh. Okay. So I'm going to do a few other things real quick. I'm going to go into a previous game of mine and go ahead and start setting the size of the project. I always forget the aspect ratio of everything. So let's do, this is the most recent one that I was working on, and it is set to not the right size. This one should be. Okay, I usually do 1280 by, what is it, 740, I think is the aspect ratio. 720, 1280 by 720. But I usually bump it up by 50. There's a little bit of a sizing issue because of the full screen button on itch.io. So when you hit run game, this little thing right here makes the height. Sorry. But because of that that little button, it kind of makes the sizing a little weird. So I always bump it up to 770 just to be on the safe side. Go into. Oh, I already forgot it. Game Off. That's what it was. Do 1280, 770. And I'm going to go back into edit just to make sure it's saved. Cool. It did. And same here. I'm going to go back into our project settings, player, and resolution. 1280 by 720. This one is where we do not want to. We want to keep it the actual size here. And I'm going to go ahead and adjust our color one more time. We'll make this one orange. How about that? So you don't actually have to do this, but again, with it, while you have some time here, could you explain what CI/CD is and how it helps in development? Sure. Give me just a moment, and I will certainly do that. So we didn't have to adjust the color in this case, but I'm doing it for two reasons. Because we're adjusting the project settings. Project settings don't actually show up in. Let's undo this. There we go. So we have our green. If we just do our git status, oh, okay, it does actually show the project settings. I am mistaken. But the other reason that we do it is just so we can visually see which version of the game is currently on itch once it deploys. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just so once it builds and deploys, we can see that it is on this hideous baby puke color. So git status, we're going to add that to our commit, create the commit, update project settings. push it to development, but I'm going to wait until that build process is done. Okay, so our CI/CD has actually finished. The build is done. It has been created and sent. Ugh, it's not actually working. There we go. Okay, so if I click into this, you can see that the build is now down here under artifact. That is our WebGL build. So the second part, the deploy to itch.io, is going to take this WebGL build and connect it to the proper place. Now we've got an error message. This request has been automatically failed because it is a deprecated version of Artifact. So I'm going to have to update this template at some point. I remember encountering this at another point. Anywho, Paul, coming back to your question, could you explain what CI/CD is and how it helps in development? Absolutely. So CI/CD stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. And depending on what organization you're part of, those can be slightly different, but the main concept of it is the same. So what this means is you are continuously going to be integrating very small changes into your repository. And each time that that change has been added to your repository, it is automatically going to create a brand new build and deploy it to specific places. In this case, I don't actually want to create a new build each time that I make a change to my Unity project. I want it to do it automatically. That saves my computer from, going through a 15-minute build process each time. So the way I have it set up is anytime you push your repository changes up to GitHub, it has a GitHub action. It is going to build that Unity project on the back end, just like this. It will save it to a GitHub folder, which is in this workflow right here. And then it is going to automatically deploy it to my personal itch.io page. And then the best thing about this is you set it up once at the beginning of your project, and you don't ever have to worry about building it yourself. You can create multiple pipelines. So if I wanted to deploy this to Steam and Itch, and also create a desktop build, and also create a Linux build for a client, I could create all four of those pipelines and have it build all four simultaneously. Saves a ton of time. It helps you identify where there's problems in your pipeline. It frees up your computer resources because you are having a server do this rather than doing it on your own machine. So that's additional development time. There are tons of reasons to actually get into CI/CD. I recommend doing it for absolutely every project if you can. I highly recommend it. Great question. Great question. But let's figure out what's going on with this H1, V1 and V2 of artifact actions is deprecated. Well, let's see what I currently have in mind. Okay, CICD. Let's go into the template. Okay, yes. So it is currently using V2. I had fixed this in a current project that I'm working on. So what I'm going to do is go into the template file from that and just compare it. Everything looks like it should match. That's up to the deploy pages. I thought you could set it to the other side. Multiple tabs, move document, other view. Cool. Yeah, so everything looks like it matches. 14.4. I'm going to try rerunning that just to see, but I may have to redo this one. Yes, sir, absolutely. So I'm going to try just rerunning just the failed job, which is the deploy. The build process worked fine, but it was the deploy that didn't. So let's try that again just to see if it deploys the second time. I don't think it will, but we'll try. The deploy step actually goes fairly quick. Yeah, so it did it again. Let's go ahead and do that push with the new changes. That may be what it is, because we had previously had it set up so that it was doing. Oh, I didn't actually hit it. Cool. There we go. So we originally had our Unity project set up as being the default Windows, Mac, and Linux. That's what it was. So what it was doing, it was creating the Windows, Mac, and Linux build, but it was trying to upload that over to itch.io. Itch.io doesn't handle that in the browser form that we're going to. So when we were trying to deploy it to an HTML set page, let me actually go to that so you can see. So here in our itch.io page, we had, we had that set as an HTML rather than a downloadable. And because of that, it was trying to take the downloadable default Unity project and connect that to the itch.io HTML page. When we adjusted it to the WebGL build, now it should build the correct file and connect that over to it. I think I just pushed it. I did. Refresh. Okay, so development just had that push. That should be the updated project settings. We go into the actions. We can see that new commit is now here. It's doing the build process. Will take a little time, unfortunately. Like I said, about 10 minutes. Excuse me. I'm not usually this bad. But hopefully this time, once it builds properly and builds the HTML build, then it should deploy over to our itch page appropriately. So fingers crossed on that one. Oh. Anybody else got anything exciting going on tonight? Like I said, me and my wife are watching the World Series. Well, I'm not. My wife's watching the World Series in the other room and keeping me updated in the meantime. Hopefully, you guys are having a good evening. Yeah, this part's going to take a little while. Yes, this whole thing setting up CI/CD has been one of the greatest pieces that I ever got. A fun story I'll actually share with you guys. The very first game jam that I ever joined, I never actually submitted to. No, granted, it was a terrible game. So, uh, but yeah, I never actually got the build process to work. I couldn't figure out, what I needed to do to create a web-based version of WebGL. So created the game. I kept trying to figure out how to send it over, and eventually the time just expired. Never actually got it submitted. I've still got a copy of it somewhere. The second one, I figured out how to make the WebGL build, but I screwed something up so badly. I still have a copy of the file. I have no idea how to get it to build to anything. It won't build to WebGL. Won't build to WebGL. It won't build the desktop version. It is a mess, and I've never figured out what I did with it. Yeah, that one wasn't worth building anyway, honestly, but it was an interesting story. Cool game idea though. Now my first actual game that I ended up doing, I actually thought was a pretty cool game idea. I think we got some time. Well, hell, this one didn't build either. I'm getting the same one. Deprecated artifact. You know what? We're gonna open this up in ChatGPT and see what's going on with it. This is my GitHub action. Build process is fine. Deploy gives error. And paste error. Let's see what it says. Your deploy job is using a deprecated artifact. Replace it with artifact v3, which is the latest supported. Is that seriously all we need? So I'm specifically looking at this deploy pages part here since that's what fails. Okay, yeah, see, it's got the artifact updated to v3 right here and the checkout at v3 there. I'm going to make that minor adjustment. I don't know which one's which, so I'm just going to close both. This is for Project Divinity, Game Off. So we want to update the steps uses right there. That one's already set to v3, so we want to update download artifact right there to v3. All right, let's try that. Get a new commit. Oh, I didn't add it. Create a new commit, and in this one we fixed CI/CD deploy artifact version. Okay. Hopefully that one should do it. I apologize, everyone. I'm a little behind on my game dev stuff, so hopefully this should fix the issue. The good part is once you actually get this process in place and working, you never have to update it. Well, you very, very rarely have to update it again. I can actually give a pretty good example of that. This project that I'm working on is called Project Divinity. And I'll show you what I currently have on here. I don't think there's any sound. Hopefully this won't get too loud. Okay. So it's all just primitives. So just a little top-down shooter. I won't sit here and play it for very long. So it's got different waves of different types of enemies, and as you defeat them, they drop experience. It's a little roguelike. I won't really sit here on this, but the point is, background's purple right now. We are going to update the background of that game just to have a different color, so you can kind of see what this actually does. That's it. What branch am I on? I'm on features enemies, so not where I want to be. We're gonna stash, check out, well, prototype in this case. Hmm. Oh, I missed something. Oh, that's what it was. I didn't let it. I'm on the right branch. I am. I always forget the command for applying a stash. Git stash apply. Okay, cool. So now we're going to add that. Commit it. Test change BG color. So now that's going in the background. And the next time that actually completes the build process for this one, am I still getting the same thing? Okay. So hopefully that WebGL process fixed the issue. We're going to find out in just a moment. But we've actually got two separate ones going right now, just so you can see what that process is like. I just made one small change. It is on a branch that is currently within my my template pipeline. So yeah, so it looks like something in my template is out of date. I am going to need to go back through this and actually redo it. In the meantime, I will show you what it looks like with that that other project that is already set up. It's already working, and I will have to come back and do this another time, or we can do it on stream if you'd like. So let me go to Project Affinity. We can come into our actions. Whoa. I didn't actually push it. Man, I've just messed everything up tonight. That happens sometimes, though. But hopefully, I won't sit here and try to correct it on stream because that's going to take a while to debug. But you know, we're developers. This happens. We make mistakes. So I'm not going to admit that I'm perfect. But it is a really cool process. Like I said, if you aren't familiar with it, I highly recommend not this one. Game CI. Game.ci. This is the documentation that I'm going to be coming back to for that template, that builder and that template file. You can see a lot of the same stuff that we were talking about on our stream. I think the entire file is actually down at the bottom. Yeah, so see, here's a version that's got all of the various platforms. So this one is doing a build process for each one simultaneously. It's doing a standalone OS X for Windows, one for 64-bit Windows, Linux, iOS. So you can have it build multiple ones at the same time, deploy them all to separate places. So in this case, my build process is actually working. We're going to go back to it real quick. To action. So, and if we scroll down here, our build process is actually working. We have a WebGL build, and you can see it just downloaded, go away McAfee. And if we come over to our dashboard, this is Game Off, we should, don't hold me to this, but we should be able to just drop that WebGL build in there. I haven't actually done this. So hopefully that does it. And remember, the last color we had was the orange. So it's going to build the first time. We hit run game. Hopefully we should see that orange background. And we do. So ideally, whenever, instead of having to click to manually download the artifact here and drag it over, this should automatically take this and connect it to the itch.io page automatically. It will give you a notification. You can see here, each time I create a new commit on either the prototype development or main branch of Project Divinity, it creates a new HTML build each time and has deployed it automatically. Gives you a notification directly on itch, so you can click it and see what the most recent change is. You can set this to restricted or drafts and give people passwords so that only certain people can see it, like if you're working for clients or team members, whatever the case is. So it's really, really helpful to do this. And I usually try to have it done before every single game jam or whenever I start a new project. Get it set up once at the very beginning. Makes it super easy to do this in the future. I think that's about all I can really do at the moment. I'm really going to have to sit down and figure out why the deploy process isn't working, but hopefully this gives you a good idea of at least the vast majority of it and gives you the right tools that you need. If anybody wants my template, you can certainly use it. If you want to create your own, like I said, game.ci is probably the best place to actually get started and learn about this process. The Unity license piece, if you need information on getting your license activation file and turning that into the Unity license file, that is so confusing. The documentation is a great spot on that. I also have another video on my channel if you would like to do that. And I think that's all the main pieces. I know that was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. We got a couple people in stream. Do you guys have any questions that I can answer before we hop off here for the night? I'm looking forward to getting back to the ball game. Will be good to know the steps you took to debug the issue after you fixed it. Looking forward to the next stream. Can I ask a question related to Unity that isn't about today's? Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yes, I will be completely honest. I'm not sure what steps I'm going to take just yet. ChatGPT is most likely going to be my friend. And then I'm going to look into the deprecation issue for the V2 and V3 artifact. But specifically what I'm going to do at this point, I honestly can't say. But yeah, I will keep you guys posted, maybe make a future video or a short or something so I can. Yeah, absolutely. If you've got a question for Unity that isn't about today's stream, certainly let me know. What you got for me? Possible to use Unity for animating storytelling purposes? I'm probably not the best person to ask on that. My initial reaction, and I say this mainly as a programmer and a game developer, I don't see a reason you couldn't. I know it's got all the right tools, and there are rigging tools, I believe, built into Unity. You can use it for scripting those objects in certain directions. You can certainly do the camera. I don't see a reason why you couldn't. But I do believe there are probably better tools out there specifically for animation. As far as what those tools are, like I said, I'm really not the best person. But yes, uh, my initial gut reaction, you certainly could use Unity for it. Yeah, it's really just a tool. What you do with it is entirely up to you. Um, I'm trying to think of other things that I know are people use Unity for. I've actually been interviewing for a job here locally with flight safety. They make flight simulators fairly fairly obvious after you say it out loud. But they actually use Unity for a couple of different pieces. They have a system that implements HS HSLS I HLSL, high level shader language. They have custom shaders that they do in Unity, and then they have some sort of proprietary system that puts it over into their simulator. Like it's pretty cool. And then they use it for several of the physics-based systems as well. Now, don't hold me to that. I don't actually work for them. I've just been interviewing, so that's the pieces that I've gotten. But yeah, you can use it for a ton of different purposes outside of actually game development. It's really cool. Great question. So we got a couple minutes left. Does anybody else have any last minute questions before we get off here? I got to get this baby puke color off here. Okay, that's better. We'll get it a little closer to the default color. Cool. All right. Any last minute questions? I'll give you a couple minutes. Hey, yeah, absolutely. Good question. I appreciate you just being here, hanging out with me, and asking questions. This is kind of stuff I love talking about. All right. Well, I don't see any additional questions just yet. I'll give you guys a minute or two just in case somebody's typing. I know it's a little slow on the backside. Um, if anybody is, I don't do this a whole lot. I'm trying to get back into game development and specifically YouTube side of things. So if you guys are not subscribed to the channel already, I am going to try to start doing either weekly or bi-weekly game development videos on my own process, things that I'm learning, things that I'm doing, other development projects that I see. So if you guys are interested and aren't subscribed to the channel, I'd appreciate it if you did. Um, and again, thank you guys for just hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys later.